AFC quarterback landscape has transformed into an absolute gauntlet with the best quarterbacks residing in this conference. Today, we have the unfortunate task of ranking every single AFC starting quarterback from worst to best. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. And we are going to begin with at number 16, I have Joe Flacco or whoever starts for the Browns. Now, as of when I'm recording this, which is the 17th of August, we do not know who is going to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, though it does seem like Joe Flacco will be the guy. Regardless, though, of who starts for this team, whether it is Shedeur, Pickett, Gabriel, or Joe Flacco, I think that it's pretty fair to put all of those quarterbacks in dead last in the AFC. And that's not to say they can't prove me otherwise. It's just that for the rookies, they're very unproven. And for Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, they're good backup quarterbacks, but they have very limited upside as starting quarterbacks. It's sad to see the Browns still in last place for quarterbacks, and hopefully at some point the next couple of years they can move up this list. Number 15, I got Anthony Richardson. Now, he is in a quarterback battle with Daniel Jones, though I do believe the Colts will ultimately allow Richardson to be the starting quarterback come week one. When he has been healthy, he has shown flashes and glimpses, but that's been the big issue for Richardson. He really struggles to stay on the field. 2025 kind of feels like a make or break year for the young quarterback, which is kind of sad to say and sad to hear because I think he has all the talent in the world. It's just that so far he has not been able to put it out on the field because of either injuries or just straight up inconsistent play when he's been on the field. So hopefully in 2025 he can have that big step forward into what could end up being a long-term career with the Indianapolis Colts, because for right now he's at my number 15, which is sad to say because I actually have another younger quarterback in front of him. That's just how inconsistent Richardson has been in his career. At number 14, I have the rookie quarterback Cam Ward. Now, you could make the argument that Cam should be below Richardson because at least Richardson has played in the NFL. And that's a fair argument, but I do believe Cam Ward will be the better quarterback than Anthony Richardson based off what I have seen. Now, so far during the preseason games, Cam Ward has not necessarily looked like an absolute all-star, but he's been making a lot of high-level throws. There was a throw in the last preseason game that was dropped. That was an absolute beauty. He's had a couple of those throws throughout this so far preseason. And I just think that he has a nice little supporting cast around him that he should have some familiarity with as the season progresses. Compare that to Anthony Richardson, who I just don't know if he's even going to be on the field for all the 17 games. And that makes me probably put Cam Ward in front of him because I trust Cam Ward to at least be on the field for all 17 games. Now, if you do tell me that Richardson does play every game, then I think Richardson could have a better year than Ward, but we'll have to wait and see. For now, Cam Ward's at 14. I will say this, I think he's a very talented quarterback that has a lot of growing to do over these next couple years. I think 3 to 4 years down the road, Cam Ward will easily be a lot higher on this list. At number 13, I have Justin Fields. Unfortunately for Justin in his short little career so far, he hasn't really fully panned out, whether it's because of the team around him or just him not performing up to expectations. So far, Justin Fields has been somewhat disappointing. Now, in defense of Justin Fields, I don't necessarily think he has been put in the best situations around him. Chicago had a terrible offensive line with some average to below average weapons around him. In the 1 year that he had a good weapon in DJ Moore actually had a really good season, and Justin Fields showed flashes and glimpses, but never really was able to put it together. He is a dual threat quarterback that can get the job done, and I think in New York, specifically with the Jets, Garrett Wilson and all the talent that is around him, I could end up seeing a world where a Justin Fields ends up playing at an average level. Frankly, if Fields could get to that average level, maybe that does mean he could be their long-term starting quarterback just to have some stability in New York. I think there's a lot to prove for Fields. Is he a backup quarterback for the rest of his career, or is he a future starter? These next 2 years are going to be massive indicators and massive seasons for Justin Fields to prove that he can be a starting level quarterback in the NFL, because unfortunately so far in his career he has not quite done so. Moving to number 12, I have Drake May, the New England Patriots second-year quarterback. Did not play the entirety of his rookie year, but he played the majority of the games. I thought even though there was some highs and some lows, Drake May ultimately did a good enough job with a really poor supporting cast. Let's not forget, Drake May had a head coach who's no longer a head coach in the NFL. He had an offensive line that was probably the worst or second, somewhere in the bottom 5 worst offensive lines in the entire NFL. piss poor receiving core with really nobody who could consistently get open, and a defense that was good enough but not necessarily great. I don't necessarily think this Patriots team has overhauled the roster to the extent that all of a sudden they have this great offensive line, receiving core, incredible this and that. I think they did a good enough job to really support the young quarterback. I love the head coach hire of Mike Vrabel. I think he's perfect for this team. Defense got a lot better this offseason with some new additions. I thought adding Will Campbell on the offensive line was smart. Stephon Diggs, Kyle Williams, Travion Henderson. They added a lot of pieces to really help Drake May and his early development. I still think they're 2 to 3 years away from becoming actual contenders. I don't think they're quite yet there this year, but I think if they continue to build and Drake May continues to develop as I expect him to do so, I'm looking at this Patriots team and I'm looking specifically at Drake May and thinking that this could be a team that moves up a lot of power rankings. So for now, Drake May will be at 12, but if you tell me by end of season that he's in the top half of this list, I wouldn't necessarily be that shocked because I think he's a very talented quarterback that has everything you want in a starting franchise level quarterback. Moving over to number 11, I have Trevor Lawrence. Now, unfortunately, Trevor's career has been such a roller coaster of highs and lows and lowers. First year was such a bad year for him. Everything around him was just horrific. The roster was not good. The coaching staff was pathetic. Everything was not going well in his rookie year. They bring in a new head coach. Things start to go their way. The roster starts to gel. They make the playoffs. They make the big playoff win. But since then, it's just kind of been downhill ever since. So in this offseason, the team was pretty aggressive in free agency and adding a couple key pieces here and there, as well as pursuing a Travis Hunter in the draft, making the big trade up to get him so he can help in both your defense and your offense. Trevor Lawrence now has an offensive-minded head coach in Liam Cohen. He also has a massive paycheck now, with Trevor Lawrence being one of the highest-paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot to prove for Trevor. Now, it's not necessarily a make-or-break year, because if you are Trevor, you already have that second contract, so you're kind of chilling. But you do want the Jaguars to feel good about paying you that money, and I think you want to live up to the amount that you're getting paid. Trevor has shown flashes. He's had some good years, some good weeks, some good stretches of games. He's also looked really bad at certain points too. I'm hoping that this year he's able to turn it back around, because if he can do so, I think he's easily going to move up this list. He's one of my actual favorite dark horse picks that you can put such a little amount of money on to win the MVP and get so much back in return if he does win it, because I could truly see him having that type of year with the new weapons on this team, with the improvements from the line, maybe some differences in the running back room, but mainly Liam Cohen, who can get this team's offense really back on track. Moving over to number 10, I have Tua Tagovailoa, and it's such a sad placement to have him here, but frankly, one of the biggest reasons why I have him at 10 is just that I can't trust him to stay healthy for all 17 games. If Tua was healthy, he'd probably be up a few spots on this list, because a healthy Tua is actually a really solid starting quarterback. The issue is I feel so scared every time he drops back that he's going to get injured, and it's just one of those things where because of those concussions that have plagued his career, it's really hard for me to move him up the board. The other thing with Tua is he just does not succeed in high pressure games or in certain situations compared to every other quarterback above him in this list. I know what type of quarterback I'm going to get out of them in specific games. Now, that's not to say that Tua can't win in the playoffs or can't win versus a team above 500, because he can do so, and we've seen him win a couple of those games in the regular season. But I need to see him put it together for an entire year, have success in the cold, stay healthy, beat the Buffalo Bills or beat one of those tougher opponents, and get your team to the playoffs. I look at Tua and think he is a really solid quarterback, but definitely not a difference maker. And again, he's only at number 10 primarily because of injuries, but also because of his inability to elevate the team around him. So it's kind of an unfortunate ranking for Tua. I really wanted to move him up, but again, I just can't trust him to stay on the field. Moving over to number 9, I have Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers last year, I thought had a decent year for the New York Jets. Now, I thought the team around him was not very great, and I thought for a 40-year-old quarterback, he could only do so much, and ultimately that's what ended up kind of happening. The team around him just not that great. The coaching staff was also not very good too. There was a firing mid-season and just a lot of changes throughout. And Aaron Rodgers, despite having statistically an okay season, was definitely nothing spectacular. Now he goes to Pittsburgh. And I worry a lot about this offense, but I do think Pittsburgh's defense will be enough to have that team win a lot of games next year. I think Rodgers just has to go out there and play at a similar level to what he had last year, maybe a little bit better, less turnovers, just keep the offense on the field, sustain drives, run the football effectively. I worry about the offensive line, and I really worry about this receiving core. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has enough support on the offensive end, but I do think that defense will be enough. I think Rodgers still has that savvy, veteran-like experience that will get him through an entire season. If he could stay on the field, which he was able to do last year, then I feel pretty good about him in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh will be a playoff team, and I think Rodgers will definitely be able to get the job done. Now we enter into the top half of the list, and so far the bottom half hasn't been necessarily spectacular, but as we go into the second half, we are going to see some really big baller names. Next up at number 8, I have Bo Nix, the Denver Broncos quarterback. Now, I know I'm going to get some flack for having Bo Nix this high, but I think Bo Nix is just the perfect system quarterback for what the Broncos want to do. I think Drake May has a higher ceiling, a lot higher of a ceiling than Bo Nix. But from what I saw in their rookie seasons, Bo Nix was just the better quarterback, and that's just me being honest. Now, again, if you were to put Drake May on the Denver Broncos with that team, with that coaching staff, and so on and so forth, maybe the roles are reversed, and Drake May is the better quarterback, and probably would have been higher on offensive rookie of the year awards. But unfortunately, that's not the truth, and that's not what ended up happening. I thought Bo Nix in his rookie year, he got the job done. Limited the turnovers, checked the ball down when he had to, made the right throws, and occasionally would make some very high-level throws that you want to see from an NFL starting quarterback. And it isn't like he's working with this great supporting cast. His RB1 for most of last year was Javonte Williams, and his number 1 receiver was Courtland Sutton. And outside of that, they didn't really have anybody particularly special on the outside. Their tight ends were poor. Yes, they have a great offensive line and their coaching staff's good, but the supporting cast around Bo was not necessarily ideal. Yet despite that, Bo Nix was able to get the team into the playoffs, and yes, they got dismantled by the Buffalo Bills, but I thought Bo Nix, for the most part, the entire season did his job. He got the team into the playoffs. The offense was borderline, if not maybe even top 10 last year. Compare that to Drake May and those other rookie quarterbacks where a lot of them struggled. So I have Bo Nix at 8, but if this offense could take a step forward, then I think he might be able to move up the board just a few spots if he can elevate his game from being more of a cog in the machine to becoming a bigger portion of that machine and really being the big reason for this team to elevate. Then I think Bo Nix will be in for a really big year. Moving over to number 7, I have Geno Smith. Now, statistically, 2024 was not his greatest season. It was a season where he threw a number of turnovers and the touchdowns didn't come in bunches, and the Seahawks just weren't the greatest offense last year. However, in defense of Geno Smith, I thought his play on the field was a lot better than what the statistics do say. His offensive line was abysmal last year. DK Metcalf kind of looked checked out at some points. The rushing game was so bad because of that offensive line, and I thought Geno Smith was still kind of carrying this offense on the occasion. Now, he was far from perfect. He made a lot of mistakes. I don't think he was perfect at all, by no means, but I thought he was able to get the job done. Now we head over to the Las Vegas Raiders. He's got Brock Bowers. He's got Ashton Genty. I think he has a better offensive line, Jacoby Myers, and I think a great play caller too. And I feel like Geno Smith should be in for a really good year. Geno is not a difference maker at quarterback, but he is good enough. He reminds me in some ways of like an Alex Smith. That's fine. He's a good enough quarterback. He'll get the job done. He'll make a couple plays here and there that is incredible, but he's probably not good enough to get you to that Super Bowl. That's kind of where I feel Geno is. Maybe it's just because he was in Seattle. Maybe now that he's in Las Vegas, he could be so much better. But I think hopefully for Geno's career, he's able to ride it out here in Las Vegas and be a solid starting quarterback for a team that hasn't really had stability in quite a couple years. Moving over to number 6, I got CJ Stroud, the young quarterback for the Houston Texans. Now, if you had asked me where Stroud would have been after his rookie year, he probably would have been up one spot or probably in the same spot. But after last year, a year in which the team around him just got injured and banged up a ton, Tank Dell missed time, Nico missed time, Mixon missed time, and the offensive line sucked and the play calling was not good, Stroud was able to still get this team into the playoffs and win a playoff game, and I thought for the most part it looked pretty good last year. Now, there was some mistakes. I thought he was very untrusting of his offensive line. I thought he threw a couple turnovers that were his fault, But when it came down to it, he still got the team into the playoffs and still was able to win a playoff game, which was, in my opinion, quite impressive. Now for CJ, I think this is a big year for him, not necessarily to prove himself, but to try and get the Texans into contention while he's still on this rookie deal. Unfortunately, the offensive line does still leave a lot to be desired, but the receiving core is healthy. You also added some now new youth in there. You have a bunch of new pieces on the offensive line, which I still worry about, but it could maybe be a little bit better. You have Joe Mixon back there. Your defense is still probably a top 8, top 5 defense in the league. I think it's a big year for Stroud and the Texans to try to make that big playoff push. But now we enter into our top 5, and at number 5, I have Justin Herbert. The one big knock on Herbert is that he has not had the playoff success of any of the quarterbacks above him, or even as the young guy in CJ Stroud, who has 2 playoff wins and Herbert doesn't have any. Now, I don't necessarily love using playoff wins against a quarterback because it is a team game, but ultimately, when you were the favorites in a couple of these games and then you end up blowing a massive lead to Jacksonville and then getting blown out to Houston, some of the flack does have to go on Herbert. Again, I'm not putting it all on Herbert. It's a team sport. The coaching staff has to do better. The team around him has to do better. But Herbert does have to take a bit of the blame. Now, outside of that, Herbert in the regular season is actually an incredible quarterback that has always felt like he's 1 or 2 games away from really cementing himself as one of those top quarterbacks. We consistently talk about his talent, his ability, but there's always the what if element. What if the team was healthy? What if the team had this? What if the team had that? I don't really like doing the what if game. Regardless of all that, though, Herbert has consistently shown that he is one of the best talents at the quarterback position. His arm talent is incredible. His processing is really good. He's a perfect fit within this new system with Harbaugh. He does not turn the ball over very much. He gets the ball out on time with anticipation. He can make the splash plays downfield while also taking the check downs and playing the dink and dump game down the field. So I think Herbert has it all. The one thing he doesn't, though, is the playoff success. That is the only reason why he's at my number 5. It's kind of hard to move him up because as we get to the top 4, boy, is it stacked. And let's go ahead and talk about it. The top 4. Now, we all know the 4 names that are going to be on here, but in what order? I want to say this. This is just my opinion. There will be some disagreements, and I'm totally fine with that. I want you guys to understand this, though. I am not set in stone with my rankings. I think you can order them in any particular way, and I will have no disagreements with you. If you have Mahomes number 1 and Burrow number 4, or even Burrow number 1 and Lamar number 4, I really have a hard time disagreeing with you because these guys are so neck and neck. But again, this is my ranking. At number 4, I have Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow is an incredible quarterback. He is, to me, in my opinion, by the way, these are the 4 best quarterbacks in the league. The 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL reside in the AFC, which is just awesome. The AFC is such a gauntlet. Burrow is at my number 4, primarily because he has had some injuries in the past, which does make me question if he can stay on the field for the entire season. And he doesn't quite have that rushing element that some of the other quarterbacks above him do. Not to say that he's a statue in the pocket, because he's far from it, but he's not necessarily an elusive guy like a Lamar or a Josh who can be dual threat quarterbacks and have that extra element in your mind. Joe Burrow is your typical classic Peyton Manning statue in the backfield, dropping back, making dimes down the field to probably Jamar Chase over and over again. He is the smartest, in my opinion, quarterback in the NFL. I think he is one of the most accurate in the NFL, but the injuries and that dual threat ability that he does not have are the only reason why he's at my number 4. If he had stayed healthy for his entire career and had great year, he could have an argument to be moved up, but because he doesn't have some of those things, he's at my number 4. Moving over to number 3, I have Patrick Mahomes. Now, if this was a list for which quarterback would I want to have in the clutch or in the playoffs, it would obviously be Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes is the most clutch quarterback, honestly, I may have ever seen, not named Tom Brady, but he's making a good argument to be the most clutch quarterback. He's been dominant in his career, winning multiple Super Bowls, beating the likes of the Ravens, the Bills, the Bengals pretty consistently in the playoffs. The only guy that has actually beat Mahomes in the playoffs has been Joe Burrow, so there is a bit of an argument there, but for the most part, Mahomes is such an incredible quarterback. The only reason why he's at my number 3 is his regular seasons these past few years, despite finding ways to win games, hasn't necessarily necessarily been all that impressive. Now, he's been far from bad by no means. He's been really good, but he's also just not been the Mahomes that we saw in years past where he was getting 40, almost 50 touchdowns with 4,000 plus receiving or passing yards. It hasn't quite been that as of late. And honestly, that's totally fine because this Chiefs team is still finding ways to win because of how great their defense is, how clutch they are when they need to be, and just the timeliness of their offense with them scoring in a multitude of ways. I am a little bit cautious this year about the Chiefs because they did lose a lot in the offseason. Some pieces on the defense. They lose Joe Tooney on the offensive line. I worry a little bit about the receiving core, especially with the age of Kelsey. And I don't think the running back room is particularly special. But Mahomes is just that guy. Andy Reid is just that guy. And yeah, they're the best team in the playoffs for a reason. Number 2, I have Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills quarterback, the reigning MVP. I know there's a lot of debate even to this day about whether or not Allen or Lamar should have won that MVP. If I had a vote, it would have gone to Josh Allen. And it's just for one reason. I have voter fatigue. I wanted Allen or somebody else not named Lamar or Mahomes to win it. And it felt right to finally give Josh Allen his MVP award. So that would have been my reasoning. It wasn't like Lamar was better than him by a wide margin. It wasn't really the case. Those guys were both spectacular. And Josh Allen beat Lamar in the playoffs. So that's kind of that. Again, this is a ranking that is primarily focused on the regular season, but we do take some playoffs into this. I would rather have Josh Allen than Lamar in the playoffs. Lamar has been better in the playoffs as of late, but he hasn't been as good as Josh Allen or even Patrick Mahomes. But he's been fine in my opinion. Josh, in my opinion, is the ultimate weapon. You can use him in a multitude of ways. I think he's an excellent passer of the football. He can play with anticipation, play with timing. He's a dual threat quarterback that can do so many things in the ground game too. He is the entire machine for the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills go as Josh Allen goes, and you can't quite say that about even Lamar Jackson, who I do have in front of him, but Josh is the entire machine, which could lead sometimes to some turnovers, which is one of the reasons why he's a little bit lower. And honestly, that's really it. It's such a tight race. If you want Josh at number 1 or number 2, I don't necessarily blame you, because at my number 1, I do have Lamar Jackson, the multiple-time MVP. I know his playoff success has been a little bit frustrating, but I do think this will be the year they put it all together. I really do believe in this Ravens team. If they can stay healthy, this team with this defense, with this receiving core, with Derrick Henry, the Ravens look poised for a massive year. I think Lamar Jackson is the best dual-threat quarterback we've ever seen. I think it's easy to say that at this point. He is such an elusive rusher of the football, and I think as a passer, he has developed into becoming one of the best passers of the football in the game. Now, I think Josh might have an argument to be a better pure passer of the football, but I think Lamar has the rushing category down, albeit not by a massive margin, but big enough for him to be my number 1. Again, if this were the playoffs, I would have Lamar at 4, Burrow at 3, Allen at 2, and Mahomes at 1. But if we're taking everything else into account, then I think you probably have to put Lamar at number 1 or number 2. Lamar has been incredible. Allen has been incredible. Mahomes, Burrow, Herbert, every single one of these guys has been awesome. To me, you could put them in any single order, and I really have no disagreements. You let me know your order in the comments below, and I love you guys. Peace.